Close your eyes for a minute and imagine you're sitting on your front porch in early September. The clouds roll in and you feel the first cool wind to fall on the wings of a cold front dropping out of the north. Now open your eyes and it's actually July the 21st. That's what it's going to feel like for some of us folks. We're going to get the first taste of fall here in mid-July. It's going to beat back the heat of summer, at least in some locations. And by the way, today, July the 19th, is the highest average peak temperature for the United States. It's all downhill from here, although it may not feel like it for others of us over the next couple of weeks. This is all part of a big change in the weather pattern. We're going to have severe weather, but that's orientation of that's going to change over the next week or so. And the door is going to be open for tropical development, all part of this big change in the pattern. We don't have to imagine severe weather. It's out there, and we're going to take a look at it. For a large portion of the north, we're going to be under the threat of tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds. We're going to look at that. We're going to get into the tropics too, because there are just signs now right around the corner that the tropics are waking up, and we're going to see several opportunities for development over the next couple of weeks as we get on into August. We're going to look at all of that today. We're going to take a look at that pattern change, see who's going to see fall temperatures and who's not, right around the corner. You've been watching instability oscillate back and forth as we go from day to night and actually day to day here on your monitors, and you see plenty of instability from the plains, the Midwest, Great Lakes, Northeast, and South, and look, it gets pushed back over time, which is all part of that big pattern change that's coming. We're going to talk about that because that has big implications for our weather, so stay tuned for that. But instability is needed for thunderstorm development, and we see thunderstorm development out there this morning, part of a complex that stayed together through the nights, moved into Iowa, now moving into southern Wisconsin and northern Illinois, bringing thunder. You guys are waking up to thunder out here. Some of you are waking up to flash flood warnings with 2 to 3 inch per hour rainfall rates out here as well, and a couple of severe thunderstorm warnings. Got a severe thunderstorm watch here, a few thunderstorms back in Montana, eastern Montana, down here in southern South Dakota, back into New Mexico, and then stretching along a boundary from mid-Atlantic back into the upper southeast. That's what's going on out there this morning. But look at this hazards map, or our alerts map, shows a few areas of interest today. Flash flooding potential over here in eastern Virginia near the Tidewater back into Virginia Beach, and then heat advisories through eastern portions of the southeast, going to feel like 105 or higher out here, and then extreme heat warnings up for parts of the mid-Mississippi Valley, Central Plains area through the entire week. Folks, we're going to see hundreds set up out here, upper 90s, and they are going to stick around, and it is going to be sticky because we're going to have lots of moisture in the air. That tropical air mass in this part of the country isn't going anywhere. Heat advisories around that. Dense fog in eastern Minnesota going to burn off later today, but we've got smoke again, unfortunately, coming in out of the north in effect and affecting North Dakota and portions of Minnesota as well. And that's what's going on the alerts map. Check out the surface map. Got a big frontal boundary. This is a sort of a warm front here extending from a low pressure cold front back here. So we're going to start to see a little bit of a cooling trend in the northwest behind that, but out ahead of this boundary and along it, this is where we're going to see, you can see if I draw it on top of all these colors here, you can see that boundary. Along that boundary, we're going to see little waves of energy, mid-level wind pockets. It's going to help organize thunderstorm activity at various times through the day and the night, and you're going to see heavy rain associated with these areas too. But anywhere in this green today, you can see scattered showers and thunderstorms. The Storm Prediction Center has outlined several areas of maximized, basically a maximum severe weather threat, but essentially anywhere from eastern Montana to western North Dakota and on around through the mid-plains back into the upper southeast, lower mid-Atlantic, and all of the Great Lakes region pretty much is where we're looking for at least isolated to widely scattered thunderstorms. We've got, as I said, several pockets of wind energy moving through here. Tornadoes are a possibility. Anywhere along this boundary, we get some spin and some isolated supercells. We're going to see some of that to start. The convection tends to start as supercells, and that maximizes wind threat, tornado threat, hail threat there. Then they tend to organize through the day as they come together, and that wind threat gets organized, and that becomes the primary threat. But you can see wind is a possibility in any of these areas today, and hail, particularly out here where the lapse rates are better and cooling, steeper cooling aloft gives you a better chance of larger hail. So large hailstones could fall from eastern Montana and western North Dakota and South Dakota back into Nebraska. We could see 2-inch in diameter hail size. Tomorrow, the threat is in the same general areas, maybe a little bit south, but look over here in New England. We're going to see a much better chance of, at least in southern New England, of organized severe weather, and could see a couple of rounds of that throughout the day as well. But tornadoes not out of the question, but certainly not as good a threat tomorrow as today. Wind threat is the primary threat, and hail is also a possibility, though the threat is diminished over today. Here is the wind energy in the atmosphere over the next couple of days, and you can see our flow generally along and north of this boundary. You've got a couple of ridge centers down here. This is pretty much an elongated ridge. It's kind of squashed, and it allows the flow to kind of go clockwise around this whole entire zone. And so your flow's west to east. You see that how that's kind of setting up here. And so all of this flow is fast coming in across the northern tier, bringing in pockets of wind. The brighter colors is higher wind levels, but you can see these little pockets of wind move across the north, and once in a while you get a dip, and that's a little trough, a little extra energy in the atmosphere. But where you see these little pockets of wind out ahead of these, we can see showers, thunderstorms organize and develop a severe threat. So you can see that moving through the Montana and Dakotas tomorrow. We get into tomorrow night, and then we start to see something interesting going on up here in New England, which we're going to save for a few minutes. But here's your radar as we go through the afternoon, your forecast radar. Let's roll this along to currently. There's that big blob of convection. We've got a few showers out here. It's doing a good job picking up on that stuff. But as we go through the morning hours, we're going to see that blob hang together and move on into, we get into 2 o'clock or so. Look at this, moving into northern Illinois, threatening Chicago and central Illinois as well. And then look at this, showers breaking out across just east of the Appalachians along the higher terrain, all across the southeast, a few showers up in the northeast, and we're starting to see showers break out in the lee of the Rockies. Then we get some supercells out here in Nebraska, up into the Dakotas, eastern Montana, and some additional activity developing in North Carolina, West Virginia, where the severe weather threat is this afternoon. There's some activity developing right there in our severe threat zone in the Ohio Valley, and you see these supercells getting together out here in the Dakotas. And as we get way on into the evening hours, things sort of diminish as we lose the heating of the day, but we're going to see a couple of these complexes hold together, folks, through the night. And so all of that activity will be diminished here in the south for the most part, even though the model kind of shows some stuff. It's very weak and spotty. Through the Dakotas and back into Iowa, there is an MCS, just an organized area of convection that holds together through the evening hours. That will persist and probably kick off a boundary or support a boundary and renew that convection as we get into the afternoon. And you can start to see that tomorrow afternoon in the mid-afternoon hours. And up here in New England, I'll roll this back just a little bit so you can kind of see that as we get on into the late morning, early evening hours. We've already got thunderstorms in Maine, up in Vermont. Check this out. In New Hampshire, we're looking at that, all that stuff kind of organizing into a line. So there is a wind threat up there tomorrow. So you guys take it easy, batten down the hatches up in New England. And so spotty showers and thunderstorms, again, line segments and clusters could enhance the wind threat in any of these areas that we've been looking at. And then a few more supercells out in the Dakotas, in the lee of the Rockies as well. And things will diminish a little bit better on Monday night. May see an MCS propagate through Minnesota too. So that's a possibility, maybe organize the wind threat as we get on into Sunday night out here in Minnesota. So watch out there. But anywhere in this pink area, folks, we're going to be dealing with showers and thunderstorms over the course of the weekend, okay? So anywhere kind of in the states in that area, with maybe the exception of some areas of Florida, watch out for pop-up showers and thunderstorms as we get through the weekend. Moisture, it's going to be hot and it's going to be humid east of the Rockies, but look at this, just dew points, high dew points in the 70s everywhere. And eventually, as we get on out into Monday, we start to see some relief, but big heat out in the plains. It's going to feel hot, southeast as well. Get down here, take a look at our temperatures. Pleasant across the north, but you're dealing with smoke again, and then pleasant across the New England 70s up here. We get into the 90s real quick down in the southeast, hundreds in the central plains, hundreds in the desert southwest, 80s in the interior northwest, and up into the west central plains, up just east of the Rockies, into the Bighorns, places like that. Look at this. Starting to get really nice up here in New England as we head on out into Sunday, and it's going to get even better than that on Monday. I'm telling you right now, folks, 70s up north, 90s across the south, hundreds in the plains, hundreds in the southwest, cooling off in the northeast. That's your weekend forecast and your severe weather threat. We're going to take a look at those tropics and see what's coming potentially down the line. National Hurricane Center has identified another area to watch. This is out in the Atlantic. 20% chance of development on this little lemon here. There's a wave out here. We're going to take a look at it. Not all that much expected to come out of this, although we could end up with a depression or a storm. Winds are favorable in the upper levels. It's moving into water temperatures that are favorable, but shear is going to pick up and destroy whatever takes place out there. There it is right there. You can see it kind of really flexing its muscles, so to speak, on the infrared satellite loop right there. Several more waves kind of coming off of Africa here in our MDR, our main development region. July and June are fairly tranquil in the tropics, generally speaking, except maybe a little closer to the United States. Just we're waiting for the temperatures to come up. The shear is usually pretty hostile, but it relaxes, and that's why we get a peak in September. And you're starting to see this area light up a little bit, and that area is there. There's another area out here not looking to do anything. But what we're going to watch for is the pattern changes. We're going to watch for development right here off the southeast coast and in the Gulf as well. We're going to see opportunities for that, and I'll show you why that is. But check this out. As we go on out in time, look at this. Water temperatures warming up. They've been cooler in the Atlantic, but they are starting to warm up. These are in Celsius, but really 70s to 80s, upper 80s, mid 80s, and some upper 80s as you get on in here. Gulf is warming up really, really nicely. Not record, but still above normal here. So anything that develops along the coast in the Gulf Stream, out into the Gulf, going to have some very warm water and could see some explosive development if conditions were right and we get the right kind of system out here. There is your wind shear. This is a very messy and complicated map, but just let me show you this just because it's very important. Here's the coast of the United States. There's Florida. This is a very bad drawing, but just there that is, okay? Here's our wave that's way out here in the Atlantic right here. There it is. Boom. I'm just going to put an X on it. And all of these bright colors where you get yellows and reds, bad for tropical development. Blues and greens, quite a bit better. Whites, very low shear. And watch what happens as we go on out in time here. That little area, you see it kind of pop up here. It starts to get its act together and then move on off to the east. And ooh, look at that yellow start to build around it. Reds start to build around it. Ooh, now we've got shear all over the top of it. Shear just gets worse and worse and worse. And so that's what's going on. Forecast shear is expected to get stronger over and out ahead of this thing, and it's going to kill it probably. But we're going to see opportunities along the coast for tropical development for sure. And here's part of the reason why. We've got a big pattern that's in place today. We've got a big pattern change coming. And there's that ridge, as I've been talking about, kind of elongated west to east like this. Watch what happens as we go on out over time. It makes a zonal flow west to east up here across the north. But look at this. We get on out in time, that ridge starts to really center itself over the south and migrate back toward the west. And look at this big trough dipping into New England. It's going to send a backdoor front. It's going to not really cool it off that far south, but it's going to send dew points down as well. So as we go on out in time, you see that. And eventually we get ridging over the center of the country. And eventually out in time, it sort of links up with this big Bermuda high. You get a big sprawling ridge, ridging up in New England, going to warm you back up there. But eventually it centers itself over the western portion of the country. And when that happens, you get a trough response in the east. And what happens is systems, instead of just going west to east like that, what they do is they go over the top of this ridge, ride down like this, and sometimes they get caught right along here off the coast, and they just sort of set up shop right here and meander around, maybe circulate back on the backside of this ridge, get into the Gulf as this Bermuda high pushes in this way. You see what's going on there? That's the pattern we're going into. So we're really going to have to watch the eastern or the western Atlantic here off the southeast and into the Gulf as we go on out in time. As a matter of fact, watch the GFS here. This is the operational run of the GFS. The Europeans kind of hinting at this too, which is the only reason I'm showing you the GFS other than just to show you how lack of credibility it has. But look at this. We start to see a little bit of an area lingering off the coast here, getting some spin there and potentially producing some sort of a storm. And we have another disturbance down into the Gulf working through. So over the next couple of weeks, we could see several of these little areas working south out of the northwest flow and getting caught off the Atlantic. Going to bring some thunderstorm complexes down here through the Midwest, Great Lakes, into the Ohio Valley and Southeast too, along the boundary of that ridge as we get on out in time as well. You can see those flow events kind of coming northwest to southeast, and eventually that's what the pattern looks like, and we could see some tropical developments. We're going to keep our eyes on that. Nothing imminent yet, nothing to worry about, but I'll keep you posted on it as we go on out in time. Now we're going to check on that pattern change and see who's going to get that taste of fall. Ryan Hall's on vacation. Ryan, I hope you have a great time. And Max Velocity has a fever, so he will not be doing a video today. So Cold Rain's got you covered. Max, I hope you get better. I know you'll never see this video. You've got too many other things going on, but I do hope you feel better. In the meantime, Cold Rain's got it locked down for you folks, and we're going to look at the dew points as we go on out into next week. Check this out. So especially if you live across the north, you're going to be sitting on that porch feeling that first taste of fall here in mid-July. Look at this. Dew points crashing as we get on out into Monday over the Great Lakes and Northeast. Look at this backdoor front coming in as part of that trough I showed you, even getting those dew points down in toward the mid-Atlantic and upper Southeast. Maybe we can get some drier air down in here, and warm. It will be warm, but maybe it won't be so thick and tropical, but it's going to be tropical in the plains. Extreme heat warnings up out here, and we're going to see that hot weather just linger out there. There is the temperature profile, and look at this. Up in the Northeast, you guys are going to be 15 to 20 degrees potentially below average for this time of year. Look at that big green blob, even some purple showing up. And look over here in the Northwest, not too shabby up here either. We've got a trough working in, may see some unsettled weather with that trough up there, but once the front passes up here in New England, it's going to dry out, feel like fall. Don't get used to it, but enjoy it. Take every opportunity you can to enjoy that weather. Look at this big heat ridge building in the plains as well, and you'll see energy kind of rotating around that heat ridge. But that's what's going on. Look at this as we get on out into next week, folks. Later next week, by the end of the week, you're going to heat back up across the lakes in New England, get some of that cooler air, relatively speaking, than normal working into the south. So at least in the southeast, especially particularly as that ridge builds back to the west, the eastern portion of the country may stay around normal, but definitely going to be some big heat building in portions of the country, probably the biggest heat, the longest stretch of the big heat for the year that we've seen so far. There it is, Monday. We get on out into Monday afternoon, high temperatures in the 60s up here in New England. Enjoy the day, get outside, mow the grass, do whatever you got to do, because it's going to get hot again. Like I said, 70s across the north, 70s, and look at this, 40s up in the mountains. It's going to be chilly up in some of these higher elevations out west, and then warming up a little bit into the low 70s, back upper 70s in the lakes, and hot in the plains. Look at that, hundreds showing up out here, and one more just for good measure, back into the upper 70s again as we get on out into Wednesday. 70s across the north, so not too bad. May have to deal with some wildfire smoke, but again, back in here in the plains, really, really hot. Not quite as bad in the southeast, so we may lose those heat advisories, but we are counting down to fall. 65 days till calendar fall. That is September the 22nd. 45 days till meteorological fall. That is basically, give or take, 38, something like that, 42, I don't know, somewhere in there, to September the 1st, and that is what we're looking at. So that is meteorological fall, by the way. So we are counting the days down to fall. Sun, not a lot going on there. Transequatorial coronal hole spinning toward us. We're going to feel an enhanced solar wind stream over the next 3 or 4 days. That'll hit us, maybe create minor geomagnetic storm conditions. So we'll be on the lookout for that. The Perseid meteor shower, by the way, is underway, and it peaks in August, but we'll have a full moon the next time it peaks. But in the meantime, if you like to stargaze, go outside and sit, look up. You might see some meteor from the Perseid meteor shower. Not a lot going on the earthquake front. Had a 3.5 up here in British Columbia at a depth of 7 kilometers, pretty shallow. If anybody's watching from up there, I can't imagine that you are from Canada, but if you're watching us, let me know if you felt anything. And there's our moon going down into waning crescent status now, 32.5%, looking for a new moon on July the 24th. The next full moon is August the 9th, folks, and we are chopping daylight from the front and the back of every day, and we are getting toward fall. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy your plans. If you got pool plans, beach plans, just check those forecasts out. Got some beaches that are going to see some scattered showers and thunderstorms along the East Coast. And but other than that, it should be a fairly nice time at the beach, and temperatures going to feel like beach time. So enjoy it. Subscribe to the channel. Leave a prayer request. If there's something I pray over for you, please give it a like and spread the word. We're trying to grow the channel, and over 1,000 subscribers. Seen a lot of growth lately, and really appreciate that. I sincerely do. Thank you all for watching, folks. Hope you have a wonderful afternoon, and we'll be back again with another update soon.